Hey guys, Chris from Hockey Tutorial here, and today we're going to be taking a look at why in 2022 Bauer still uses a two-piece construction over a one-piece. This has been a pretty big question, something that we've touched on in the past, where we're always continuously waiting for Bauer to finally release that one-piece boot frame skate. We're in 2022 and we still don't really see any evidence of that in terms of their skate lineup right now. So why is that? And of course, as always, before we jump into the video, make sure that you thumbs up because that brings more eyes to the channel, more visibility to the video. The more visibility our videos get, the more videos we can produce. So before we jump into the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything that we post. Before we jump into that, let's take a look at what the actual difference is between a one-piece and a two-piece construction, essentially what it is. So the way that a boot was traditionally made is that you had the actual boot or the skate itself, and then you had an outsole, the holder, and then the blade. Now when you go from a one-piece construction, all you're doing is essentially removing that middle part, which is the outsole. So all you have is boot, holder, and blade. So what is the big deal about that? What's the reason that you would expect Bauer to be doing that in 2022? That breaks down to a few things, but the main differences, the main things that change when you go from two-piece to one-piece is going to be the fact that you're removing an outsole, you're removing glues, clips, pins, various materials that are in the skate that essentially don't need to be there if you go for a one-piece construction over a two-piece. From there, it's also said that because you've removed a layer of materials, you're essentially allowing the player to have a little bit more responsiveness with the ice because there's that outsole being taken out. And there's less things you could say for the movements or motions of the foot inside the skate to be then translated onto the blade. Another benefit of a one-piece versus two-piece is going to be because you're removing additional parts from the skate, you're also shaving a little bit of weight off of that skate. From there, the last and final part is going to be the wrapping around the foot. The shape of a two-piece construction versus a one-piece in terms of the body of the boot, the underpart, it's slightly different, and the benefit of this is said to have better wrapping around your foot. The entire skate is a little bit more thermoreactive than if it was a two-piece construction. So those are the main differences between two-piece and one-piece. Now, after looking at the differences between one-piece and two-piece, or the main ones, why is it that we haven't seen a one-piece skate from Bauer after all of this time? We can't say that it's because of technology, because if we go back in time to when Easton was manufacturing skates, they had the Easton Makos 1 and 2, which was essentially one of the first commercially available worldwide skates that you could pick up that didn't feature an outsole. We know by looking back in time that Bauer acquired Easton some time ago, so I'd imagine that the technology, that the patents or the designs for the Easton Makos are somewhere locked up in Bauer's secret vault somewhere in the world. And of course, more recently, we saw the Odin Project skate, which was the Odin concept skate, which was that futuristic looking skate that I actually had the pleasure of going to Bauer's skate lab in Montreal to be able to take a look at the skate in person. It was one of the most revolutionary things I've ever seen in the skate world. And there was a lot of details about that skate that I wasn't allowed to share. But there was a scene where while I was holding the skate, I essentially picked it up with two fingers to try and show you, or the camera, you guys watching, how light that skate was without putting the skate onto an actual scale, because that's something that I wasn't permitted to do. Now, that Odin skate, in my opinion, didn't have an outsole. It had a holder that was kind of extended along the middle section of the skate belly, or the bottom of the skate, where we would typically see an outsole. It didn't have that. So I know that if we're looking at it from a technological perspective, if Bauer really wanted to make a one-piece boot, they absolutely could. Now, when we look at the differences between one-piece and two-piece on paper, is it a more complex way to construct a skate? 100%. On paper, is a one-piece boot better than a two-piece boot? After I've highlighted all of the major differences between the two types of construction, it absolutely is. But how does that translate onto the ice? That's where things get really interesting. Over the last few years, you guys know that I try and experiment with a range of different skates. I typically used to skate in CCM skates. Over the last maybe 6 months to a year, I've transitioned into Bauer skates, but I go back and forth. If you watch the last In the Bag video that I filmed, which I'll link down below, you'll see exactly what is inside my bag. But what that's allowed me to do is essentially have a better and clearer understanding of the way each of these skates perform from different manufacturers, more so than I've ever had in my life. After skating in both of them and chopping and changing between all of the different ranges that are available, what I've discovered is essentially if you were to blindfold me and put me onto the ice and have me skate around trying to identify what skates I was in, if I liked them, what stood out to me, what I didn't like, the way that would break down for me is first and foremost would be the fit of the skate. How comfortable is it to skate around? Bearing in mind I can't see what I'm skating around in. From there, I would go on to the features of the skate. So the pitch of the skate, how far forward does it make me lean? Is it a really like upright skate? How high does the neck area of the skate come on my foot in terms of the height past my ankle bone? From there, I'd probably look at the liners. How comfortable is it? When I turn, do I feel any parts of the skate digging into the sides of my ankle bone or the top of my high foot area? Next up would definitely be the tongue. How thick is it? How long is it? What's it made from? Is it flexible? Does it impede on my skating? I'd also consider the tendon guard. Is it flexible? Is it fixed? These are the types of things that I'd consider when I'm trying to figure out if it's a good skate or a bad skate for myself. And another element that I'd definitely pick up on is going to be the stiffness of the boot. How difficult is it to get the boot to flex and do what I want it to do on the ice based on its stiffness? These are the things that I'd consider. But at no point am I able to identify if that skate is a one-piece construction or a two-piece construction. Essentially what I mean by that is the differences once you're on the ice are negligible. It's incredibly difficult to discern the difference or notice the difference between a two-piece construction and a one-piece when you're in the meats and guts of playing hockey, skating around. Now, one skate versus another in terms of the weight of a skate is definitely something that you can pick up on to a degree. I filmed a video where I got all of the top spec skates that are available to date and weighed them with the blade and without so you could see the difference in weight. I'll link that down below. It was interesting to see which were the lightest, which were the heaviest, of course bearing in mind the two-piece versus one-piece thing. I'll link the video down below, make sure you check it out because it is definitely a good one to watch just for a little bit of insight. But the one-piece versus two-piece on the ice while you're skating, while you're doing the practicality of the testing side of things isn't something that you detect. But saying that, I think that something that has to be mentioned is if we're to compare a one-piece construction from CCM versus all of the other skates that they made prior to the one-piece construction, there is a massive difference in the features, the performance, the weight, the benefits of the new version of their construction versus the old. And at the time of, I'd probably say the second generation that we saw from CCM of one-piece boots, there was a massive difference between what they were doing and what was available from some of the other manufacturers as well. So that has to be mentioned in this video. But in terms of what we are seeing constructed right now from Bauer versus what we're seeing right now constructed from CCM, I don't feel like the one-piece versus two-piece construction is going to be the thing that you need to consider as a player or a skater, and that's going to be the thing that decides if you get this pair of skates or that pair of skates. I think the other features that I mentioned when I was explaining about being blindfolded on the ice, skating around and what I was feeling, I feel like those are the most important elements that you need to consider when you're trying to figure out which skate is going to be the one for you. On top of that, you have to remember that all of the different families of skates that are out there are for different types of players or different skating styles. That is absolutely true, that goes without saying. I think it's clear as night and day when you try, for example, an ultrasonic versus a hyperlight. There is a massive difference in the way those skates perform. I've mentioned it in previous videos where I couldn't skate in the hyperlight skates regardless of the fact that they were the ones I wanted to go for because of the features, because of how they looked. But on the ice, I just couldn't skate in them. But the ultrasonics, I didn't need to break them in, I just put them on, off I went, and they felt completely natural. Now, of course, I still stand by what I've said previously in older videos about the one-piece versus two-piece, but those videos were relevant for the time that they were shot in, and that's why it's important for me to create this update video, sharing a little bit of insight into how things stand today. But of course I have to mention, this is in no way me taking a shot at CCM, by no means at all. You guys know that I absolutely love that company, I love the products that they manufacture. This was just a topic that I felt needed to be addressed after I had spent enough time in both manufacturers' skates to be able to produce this video with a clearer understanding of the reasoning behind why companies do what they do. The one-piece boot by all means is an advancement in the way skates are manufactured, and that goes without saying. It's definitely something that has changed the game. It's revolutionized the way CCM manufactures their skates. It's really set the bar of what they produce now versus what they produced previously. But after spending as much time as I have in CCM skates, the current line of skates plus the Bauers, I felt like this was an important video that needed to be made because although it is an advancement, I think there are other things that players and skaters need to consider about the construction of a skate, the features, the pitch, what type of player or style of playing or skating that particular skate is aimed at, and the fit. All of those things are significantly more important than one-piece versus two-piece. So now, of course, we've explained how the difference is very difficult to notice on the ice with the two different types of constructions. Of course, the features and the way each of these skates are constructed and the stiffness, the pitch of the skates, like I mentioned earlier on, all of those points are incredibly relevant and are things that you can notice clear as night and day. I just wanted to mention that. But now that we've touched on all of those points, let's go back to the question in the title of this video. Why in 2022 is Bauer not making a one-piece boot frame? Essentially, it's because they don't need to. they don't really see a need, in my opinion, and from the experience of me using all of the products that are out there, I don't think Bauer sees a need to change the way that they're constructing skates. The one piece, of course, has benefits, but like I said, if Bauer, a skate manufacturer, is sitting there and looking at it going, we don't think that there's going to be a noticeable difference to completely alter the way that we manufacture a skate, you have to put your hands up and kind of give them a bit of credit for being able to stand their ground in 2022. We live in a time where when there's a new industry standard, there's new technology, a lot of manufacturers jump on it. In the tech world, we see this constantly with different types of features that are available on phones or watches, for example. But in the hockey world, we see the same thing. New tech comes out, everyone jumps on it. There's a little bit of copying from everyone, a little bit of idea borrowing, you could say, depending on. It's always difficult to say who came up with the idea first because you don't know what goes on in R&D labs. A release date that something is publicly made aware to us doesn't mean that company hasn't been sitting on it for some time. But we do see this. You see copying in this industry, you see copying in all industries. But for Bauer to essentially look at other manufacturers, CCM, all of their top spec skates, one piece, true, similar story there, but Bauer held their ground and decided that they were going to do things the way that they felt it was best. And in this instance, I kind of feel like that has paid off. So over the years, we've seen Bauer make pretty aggressive moves, like changing their entire fit system halfway through a season, introducing a completely new way to size your skates. From there, dropping the Nexus or Nixus skate range entirely. And it's also cool to see how they've been able to really separate the families that they have with their skates. Like I said, when you look at Supreme versus Vapor, there is a massive difference in the way those two different families or different ranges perform against each other. It's going to be interesting to see what they come out with next because, of course, we know the Ultrasonic skate's been out for some time, and I suspect, okay, we all know that there is another skate that's going to be coming soon, so a new range of equipment for us to take a look at, which we're very keen to see and compare to the old to see how far they've come. But I thought this was a really important video to make because it's something that I've been sitting with, it's something that we talk about internally a lot, and it's not something I've ever brought to light. Now, again, this is me in no way taking any shots at CCM for the way that they do things because, as you know, I'm a big fan of their products, I'm a big fan of what they do, and the one-piece boot, you can't take away from the fact that it is a massive advancement in the way that hockey skates are constructed. But at the same time, it did make me wonder why Bauer hadn't done it, but based on my experience, I feel like those reasons have been addressed in the video, but I just wanted to mention that before we close. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave your comments down below, any suggestions of what you'd like us to shoot next, please leave that down below. Of course, there's going to be a bunch of new videos coming, make sure that you're subscribed, notifications are turned on so you can stay up to date with everything that we post, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give us a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, guys.